Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Apologize for the 2 minutes being late. First of all, welcome back, councillors, to September's meeting. Summer's over, we're in the fall. Staff, guests, and online, the councillors. The warden tonight will be online. They asked me to run the meeting based off difficulties, I guess. So, first thing on the agenda, we'll have, as always, we'll have a moment of silence, and please, in your thoughts, think about the families of Saskatchewan who terrible tragedy out there in Nova Scotia certainly knows about that. So just ask to bear that in your thoughts. Thank you. First of all, it's called the order of land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are Midnight, the ancestor and unceded territory of the Midnight people. First item is approval of the agenda. Peter. Just 1 second. Yeah. In addition, Councillor Thomas would like something under 10A. And Councillor Miller has a correspondence there. Okay, now Peter. Yeah. Okay, seconder. Second. Seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Minded. Motion carried. Here's an omission correction of minutes of August the 2nd, 22. So, looking at motion, what's just in the errors or additions? Okay, not seeing none. I'm sure who it is. As I stated, correspondence received for information. Anybody have anything to say with A, B, or C? Okay,
yes, Mr. Deputy Warden, I'd like to comment on item A. Sometimes we hesitate and wonder if we're wasting our time when we bring issues forward, and can also wonder if it's worth passing them along to the next level of government. This is one example of a positive response, and it took a year and a half perhaps, but it is kind of reinforces in my mind the fact that this is all part of the governing system, and it is really worthwhile to bring forward those issues that are of concern to us and bring them to the attention of the proper authorities. So I'm certainly very pleased with the work that was done, the results that came forward.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on the correspondence? Carter?
I'd certainly like to compliment Amanda Reed for a well-written presentation of the impact of cutbacks to the coordinator position. Amanda McCloud. Now I knew her when I taught her in school a number of years ago. But well-written, and she made valid points. Doesn't address how we get to the balance. That's where we're trying to go with that. I'm sure every community, and River John is a very vibrant community. They do a lot of volunteers, they do a lot going on in there. And I believe they will survive with $2 less. But it may be time, as this before, that we actually look at this whole concept of recreation directors. How that gets funded, how much. But anyway, I just wanted to comment that I thought it was very well written. But thank you.
Thank you. Further? Okay, Chester, Councilor Dolan, I think.
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. This is likely, in the 22 years I've been here, this is likely one of the hardest things for me to report tonight is now. So the residents of Lorne and the people of District 12 and the county of Pictou and the people of the province of Nova Scotia send out their heartfelt sympathies to the family of the late Tyson Bowling. Janet, Amelia and Steve, and the in-laws, as well as his mother and father. This boy came to our council and asked for help a few years ago to help other people. And we helped. We were able to give $25,000 from this council and these people around this table and the residents through something that we could see that we thought was going to work and really help. And I seen how much work was getting done because I went in that barnyard every day since the last 3 years to pick up his children. And there's no other way to put it than this man died trying to make things better for everybody. He did his service when he was a sergeant, retired sergeant in the army, and he came home here to try to make things better. And him and his father and his colleagues, his other colleagues, his neighbors and friends, they pitched in all the time and it worked and worked and worked. And the only thing that I feel really, really bad is he wanted us to come up there sometime when he got things a little further along and have a look at the whole place and maybe have a lunch there or something, just to show his appreciation and to show us how hard this group was working. So I just wanted everybody to know here about that this evening, and just how hard it is for everybody up in that part of the country. When you lose somebody that young, working that hard, it's tough. There's no getting around it. It's tough, tough, tough. But anyway, there was a man that had time to do all this work, and he still had time every morning, him and his wife or whoever else was there, to stand up there on the bus committee till we got on the bus. Some different this morning for me. So I'd like to thank council for what they did for him, and hopefully some other people are going to take a hold and help continue the plans for the dreams that he had to make things right for the people that are suffering from this PTSD. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Move on, so go ahead.
I may,
Councilor.
but to clear this with Chester first, I had the privilege, I use that word quite decidedly, of teaching Tyson and Jenna, and they were not even that. They were as fine a young couple. I taught them from grade 11 and 12 business 2 years ago. They were just as few parents. Real nice. And he actually, in his grade 12 year, he signed up to join the military and did 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. He was in here. He told us some things. You know, if somebody turned the door on, he had got to see what it was. He was profoundly affected by his military experience. And yes, he took his own life. We have to stop talking about that. This becomes a problem. He was killed because of the military service. He's every bit as much a hero as if he was ever blown up by an IED when he did Afghanistan. And he should have received a hero's send-off. That's what he was. He was a hero when he was there. He had the courage to come here, speak up for his community, his military veteran community. Say, folks, we got major challenges here, and here's one way I think we can make it a little better. But he deserves to be recognized. He really does. It's a damn shame. My heart breaks for their families, for Jenna, kids, Danny White, Carolyn, Karen, and that. Pictou, who were formerly from Lockroom. Those are his in-laws. The Sampson family, the Bowen family from Alabama. All of them, all the earth good people. Have this happen to their son, son-in-law, husband. It's just heartbreaking. The visitations are Thursday, I believe, at Eagles and Westville, 2 to 4, 7 to 9. Good luck getting anywhere near there. And the celebration of life will be out at his property in Lorne. Friday, short time on 3 o'clock, Dr. Glenn Matheson will be officiating. Anyway, I just wanted to add some of those details. It's just our way. Oh, it's our way.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was very instrumental. I remember him here, plus met the 144th when he was down there percent. It was a very, very remarkable individual. I was just wondering, can we put our flags at half mast for him? So,
CEO Staples said yes. We can do that. Okay. Thanks, Peter. Okay. Move on to item 5, presentation from Deborah Searle, Capital Solid Waste Management, Monitoring and Standard Use. You're on the go, and we'll wait and ask questions after she makes the presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks to Brian for the invitation and the warden online. We've been in quite a few meetings throughout the province, and litter is definitely a hot topic. I know at your council table and pretty much every other council table in Nova Scotia. So what I want to do is just share a little bit of the work that's going on in the province to see how we can maybe prevent the problem instead of just clean it up. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit on where the province is when we talk about extended producer responsibility, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard between this table and NSFM and AMA. So we'll just share some updates on that. And I promise I won't take up too much of your time tonight. So let's see, Brian, are we going to work? Let's see, there could be a little bit of a delay here, we think. There we go. So a little bit of a disclaimer first. Unfortunately, litter isn't Pictou County specific. We are seeing, as I mentioned, across the province, and it is a very hot topic at the council tables. So we're trying to figure it out for sure. But let's look at what we're doing here locally. So many of these programs you're already familiar with. So we'll start with Pictou County's Go Clean Get Green, the annual initiative. Great uptake each year. So the 2022 recap was 127 registrations, close to 1,500 volunteers in Pictou County, and over 6.6 metric tons of litter was collected during that 1 week period. So fantastic support from our communities, and we thank, because I know some of you councillors get out there with your challenges, and we really, really appreciate you pushing this initiative for us. The other one in the province is the Great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up. So it's a provincial program, runs April to November, and they basically provide the free bags and gloves to support litter cleanups. Most of these are one-time cleanups, so it could be somebody wants to do a park or a shoreline, and they'll register their cleanup, and that data is logged for the province. Nova Scotia Adopted Highway is another one. We do have 9 active groups here in Pictou County. Adopted Highway is a little bit more commitment than, let's say, the Go Clean initiative or Great Nova Scotia Pick Me Up, where they commit to 1 to 2 cleanups on a specified area of roads each year, and they get their dedicated signage put up. Pictou County Solid Waste students. So for 4 months, we hire 4 students at our site, and alongside with helping us out on various initiatives at the waste management facility in Mount William, they go out and clean up various roads throughout the county as well. And then the last one is really individuals doing their part. It's amazing how many people on their daily walk take a bag, take a litter picker, and make a huge difference. So we're really, really fortunate to have such passionate residents that really do care about their communities and get out there each day and do their part. So a little bit on compliance, because we all want to fix the problem, and I'd like to come here today to tell you that I figured it out. I can't do that, but I'm going to share some of the tools and some of the research that's been going on to see if we can kind of get a little bit better handle on it in the province. So for us at Pictou County Solid Waste, we don't have the ability to find people or the resources to get out there and clean up every bit of litter that gets reported, but we do the support, as we mentioned. On the compliance side, so the RCMP are one that do have the ability to find. So it does kind of alter, but for first offense, you're looking at about $445 based on what they can issue. Provincial inspectors under the Environment Act, they have the ability to to use a summary offense ticket for $467.50 for a litter offense. And right now in the province, when the new Conservative government started just over a year ago, in the mandate letter from the Premier that went down to the Environment and Climate Change Department was he wants to enact the Litter Bug Act, so it's called right now, and wants to have some of the highest fines in the country to try and combat this in the province. So they've been tasked with looking at what would that look like. Does increasing a fine, does it actually relate to decreasing litter in the end? Because one thing we're noticing, and that, you know, RCMP has said across the province for years, it's really difficult to find a litterer, to get the evidence, to get the data, to get the witnesses. It's extremely difficult to catch and prosecute. So that's a little bit of the hindrances on the compliance side of things. So one thing we wanted to share, so Dunbar, Nova Scotia, which we work closely with, they're a provincial nonprofit entity. Because litter is such a big topic in the province, they embarked on a roadside litter audit in 2021. So basically, it was a comprehensive sampling of roadside litter across the province. And why they did this was because the last litter audit that was done was in 2008. So quite a few years have gone by, and we were really wondering, have we seen a shift? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better? Are we seeing different items out there? Because this data is really what we need to provide steps to help support education, compliance, and policy to help drive change and change behaviors to help fix the litter issue. So they retained Dillon Consulting, so well-known consultant here. Our local office based out of Halifax, so they were tasked with the litter. So what did they do? Well, there was a site selection. So basically there was 55 sites across the province that were audited in 2008. So that's what they selected the 2021 sites by. So a minimum of one site per location, additional sites if time allowed, if they were ahead of schedule. So what we did see in the end was a total of 75 sites did get audited in June and July of 2021 across the province. So for us here in Pictou County, there was 5 sites that were audited. So you can see the dots on the map there. So we had one up Twist River John, we had one out Thorburn Way, one out Fraser's Mountain, one in the town of New Glasgow, and one out Cameron Settlement Roadway. So those were the 5 that were specified based on the methodology of their litter selection. So how did they do it? Well, they categorized it between large litter and small litter. So large litter was basically anything over 25 square centimeters in size. So they collected it, they categorized it, they weighed it. Branded litter was identified, so we could see if there were certain brands that were coming to light more than others. So there was 13 large litter categories and then split down into 97 subcategories. So it was a very intense and involved audit, and 16 small litter categories. So those were just the ones that were smaller than 25 square centimeters. Yeah. So let's look at the large litter by category. So just sharing the highlights of it. It is a 106-page report. So if you're really passionate, you want to delve into the data a little bit further. But we'll just share the highlights today. So 21% of the large litter by category was what they considered other miscellaneous. So this could have been pieces of plastic that didn't really fit into a specified category on brand or what it may have contained. This could have been things like pet waste bags that were left. Cosmetics was one of the other ones that fell under other miscellaneous. So kind of those really oddball items or ones that couldn't be defined as a certain product. Cups, as you can imagine, was at 13%. So that's the hot drink cups, the cold drink cups, their lids, their caps, all those sort of things. Food wrappers was next. So that would be your typical fast food waste wrappers that you would see that you would get at a fast food restaurant. 12% was confectionery and snacks. So that's more like your snacks, your potato chip bags, your chocolate bar wrappers. Paper and fiber, so different paper products. So that could include, let's say, flyer waste. It could have included newspapers and napkins. And at 8% was beverage containers. So this was a mixture of both your deposit items and non-deposit. So for example, dairy products. So when we look at the small litter by the category, it's probably no surprise that the highest amount was the cigarette butts and debris. So not just the butts themselves, but it could have been the packaging, it could have been the plastic wrappers that go around it. Hard plastic was another one, small pieces of that, paper, plastic film, other kind of random small materials that they really couldn't figure out where it came from or what it was. And then chewing gum was at 5%. So that was the small stuff that was picked up. So the branded litter, so 25% of the large litter that they picked up was branded. So as you can see, 26% came from Tim Hortons. Then we go 10% was McDonald's, 9% with AB and Bev, which is a concerning one because simple fact AB and Bev is typically your Budweiser products. So seeing a lot of alcohol related cans, plastic bottles, that sort of thing out there. Then it was Pepsi, Frito-Lay, and then Nestle. So those were kind of the top 5 visible branded items that they were able to pick. So just to compare 2008 to 2021 on the large litter, as we go across the bottom, so you can see the deposit in the milk container, there was a bit of a jump in 2021. And it was noted that alcoholic beverage containers did account for quite a bit of that jump from 2008, unfortunately. Grocery was up a bit, snack was down, tobacco was down, quick service was up, and this is during the pandemic. So that's your kind of fast food wrappers. As we all know, there's a lot of convenience food that people were using and ordering out through the pandemic, whether that had something to do with it, and miscellaneous was down slightly. So now when we look at the brands again, so 2008 to 2021, as we go across, Tim Hortons was pretty comparable, McDonald's up a bit, AB and Bev hadn't really been found a whole lot in 2008, as you can see from the chart, and then Frito-Lay as we go across. So little differences in what they were seeing, but for the most part, it was quite common, the types of litter between 2008 and 2021. So from this, they wanted to kind of figure out the why. So we see what's out there, we've audited, we've got a lot of data, so what's going on? So they wanted to embark in behavioral research, and they hired a firm out of Halifax, Davis Peer Consulting for the research side of things. So basically the objectives on it was to gain a better understanding of the behavior of litters in Nova Scotia by interviews, by doing surveys, gathering as much data as they can. And then they moved on to identify examples of successful approaches. So other jurisdictions in Canada, other jurisdictions within the States, within the world, and did a lot of literature review to see what was being done. So from there, they decided that this research should really be targeted on their diagnosed priority categories, which ended up being the cigarette butts, the cups, so the hot and cold drink cups, fast food packaging with alcoholic beverage containers. So from there, it's a little small on your screen, but it was just information that they pulled out, which I don't think would be shocking to any of us, kind of the litter hotspots. So areas in and around fast food containers, carpool lots, highway on-off ramps, construction sites, parks. Sometimes it was where they wouldn't be seen as well. So those were just some of the hotspots that really came to light on where we're seeing higher amounts of litter being found. So what they're working on now is they've kind of picked 2. So they picked the cigarette butts to focus on, and then the fast food, the hot cold drink cups. So they're working on methodology for interventions that they want to pilot, and based on how those pilot projects go to determine would this make sense to roll out into different areas in the province. So on the top right there, that yellow and black box you see is actually a ballot box for cigarette butts. So what they're working on, they've ordered these units in from the UK, and they're looking to set them up in some areas in HRM currently, and kind of have Halifax, Nova Scotia specific questions, and then people will vote with their butts to see what's more popular. So it could be who's more popular, Sidney Crosby or Nathan McKinnon. You can vote for it. It could be, do you put lettuce on your donair? It could be, oh, for sure, no, God, no. So they're going to look to try and make it a little bit specific to kind of have it a little bit more fun and interactive for people, and see if it does make a difference, or if they just end up on the ground. And the other one with the coffee cups is looking at messaging, it's looking at certain types of bins potentially in drive-through lots. So we'll keep you updated on this, but it's very early on, just kind of deciding where these items are gonna be put into place and how the pilot will go. So from Divert's litter audit and their interest in it, they have developed a social media campaign which launched this past spring. So these are some of the posters developed. And one thing I know the warden had talked about in the past that was spoken about around this table was potentially putting signage up in different areas, you know, would that help? So Divert does have different visuals such as this that, you know, we have access to, that if we thought it would be a great spot, you know, to put it on a nice sign, to put it up, if that was something that was of interest, then by all means, it's definitely a resource that we have to use there. So that's kind of, I'll leave litter as it is, and we'll have lots of time hopefully for questions here at the end, but I just want to touch base really quickly on the extended producer responsibility for the printed paper and packaging. As I mentioned, I'm sure you've all been hearing little bits and pieces about it and kind of wondering where it's going. As we talked about before, it shifts the cost from consumer to the producer and makes companies more accountable and makes them try and improve their packaging so it can be more recyclable than it has been previously. And currently 80% of the population of Canada lives in an area that's got an EPR program. So for us, let's just go back there. The big goal for us on it as municipalities is we don't want residents to notice any change. We want them to be able to put the same materials in their blue bags that they're currently putting out. For them, it wouldn't be a visible change on programs. What it would be was it would help offset the costs that we have based on collection and processing fees. So that's the goal behind it as we go along. So what's the status? Well, on December 12th of 2021, Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change, they announced they were going to do a 90-day targeted consultation, which was going to launch on January 10th, which it did. And during that time, a separate consultation they were going to do on batteries, lighting, and additional electronics. So we currently have some electronics that can be recycled, but we get a lot of calls by people just really want to put anything that's got a plug on it to be able to take it back to the depot to recycle it. PEI currently has a lot more items that are being able to be recycled for electronics, so we're looking to get a program similar to that. So from there, what they did ask was for the Regional Chairs Committee and NSFM and AMA to get together and provide a consensus piece. So respond to their consultation and the questions they asked by coming together, and it was amazing how much work and time some fantastic people from Regional Chairs, NSFM and AMA put into it, but they did a great job bringing everyone together and presenting Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change with a really fantastic document with consensus. So that was submitted in April. So then the latest updates for us in June 24th at the Regional Chairs meeting, the staff had reported that they had briefed their senior management and leadership based on the responses that they received during the targeted consultation. They were directed to start working on draft regulations for both printed paper and packaging, as well as batteries, lighting, additional electronics, and they've coined a new acronym as BLADE for that one to keep it short, if we need more acronyms in the solid waste industry. But and so staff led us to believe that they think the regulations for the battery, lighting, and additional electronics will likely move forward first because it's easier. There's not as many players, there's not as many producers that they have to consult with to get the regulations and to get the programs going. But they're hoping that both will reach the fall sitting of the legislature. And once passed for the printed paper and packaging, likely 2 to 3 years for the program to be fully up and running. For the batteries, lighting, and electronics, will move a lot quicker just because electronics is already partially in place and the others have only a few brand owners to make it a lot easier. So for us, we do have a Regional Chairs Committee meeting on September 16th that we're expecting a further update, and we'll certainly be able to share more information at that time. But that's my short and sweet status of litter in Nova Scotia and EPR. So if time allows, happy to entertain any questions or comments.
I think I agree. David, very much for that great presentation. On to the floor, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We had a meeting out in the Linus here with the RCMP there and about litter and speeding and other things, but the police told us at that meeting, at that time, I think he said two people were looking at Protector County. So he said they just don't have the manpower to deal with litter.
Yeah, and that's a common, the resources and the staffing issue across, and even whether it's RCMP or whether it's environment inspectors, they're stretched really thin already. And especially when you look at the RCMP, they're dealing with some pretty serious issues, and quite often litter just isn't one of the most serious ones for sure.
Another thing that they mentioned was the pickup trucks come and pick up the solid bags, you know, the heavy ones before the recyclable. And they said if it was vice versa, because he said what they used to do was take the recyclables, put them down, put the heavy bag on it so they don't blow away or they'll get, but when they come and take the heavy ones off, that's where the license go blowing down the road. So they say that was brought up that if they would only come and take the recyclables first and then the heavy ones, you'd likely, you know, be able to you know, eliminate some that are there.
Yeah, and we have heard that before, and we've also heard sometimes if the trucks don't, they gotta stop, compact the back of the trucks, if the bag's just left there. Prime example, unfortunately, is the causeway. It's pretty rarely you go across and you don't see a blue bag that is falling out of the truck, going on there, so definitely some best management practices could certainly help.
Just one more, if I could, it's just, yeah, revoking things sort of has to be there, like where the vote with the back. I'm just wondering, is that going to encourage kids to want to start smoking because now they need a bike to turn around the vote with Chris Crosby's the best time?
Yeah.
Good way to go vote or not.
It's definitely something that we have asked Davis Peer, who are the behavioral scientist experts, because that's by no means my realm of expertise. So it is going to be interesting to see with the pilot projects that they do to see, are they effective? And we obviously don't want to make smoking cool by any means. So it will be something that they'll monitor and see if there's any negative effects in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boyles. Any further questions, Councilor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deborah, for the presentation. As I said, litter is tough, but I think there are a few things. We are making heavily honest, and we want to take the opportunity to compliment those summer students who work under a canvas direction for our solid waste facility in Mount William. They do a good job. Not an easy job, not a pleasant job, but a good job. And I believe, this is my anecdotal observations, that we do not have as much dumping in the woods and along the woods roads that we had 20 years ago. I think education does have some effect. The ability to get it to, I think our voucher program has an effect. It encourages people to say rather than drive to the right, dump it in the second neighbors down the woods road, they drive to the left, taking that way. But if you live in Lismore or John, and especially the price of gas, it's pretty significant commitment to take it to Mount William. But I think there is progress being made there. I commented to Councilor Elliott, Peter brought up about how kids might want to smoke in order to get it back. They only have to look around their feet. No problem finding it back. But I've noticed this. I do actually also garbage. Usually every other Monday, it wasn't today. Also around this, my son runs, we might have to clean up after the events. And the smokers are important. Doesn't matter how many signs there are. Just no smoking, no smoking, no smoking. The smokers come. Well, they seem to feel privileged. But then we don't want to interrupt the good time. But anyway, just a few comments. We are making progress. Education, drilling it into them when they're in primary, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Me, that's probably the key.
Thank you. And to your point on the please don't smoke, you know, we've seen litter campaigns for years that's please don't litter, and we haven't really seen that make an impact. So divert, you know, looking to try and figure out, can we find something that's gonna flip that switch on a certain, and it really is like, it's not the majority of the population that's doing it either. And to your point with the River John Lawn and Lismore, you know, with certain items being so far away, it certainly could be something as we go forward and chat about the next collection contract. There could be an appetite for, you know, similar, the majority of other municipalities in the province have access to bulky waste collection. It's definitely got its pros and cons, but sometimes does help with some of those larger items being dumped in the more rural areas.
Thank you, Councilor Carter. Councilor Keel.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Thank you tonight for coming. It's a great presentation. I just have a few questions and comments, if you wouldn't mind. I guess I was really intrigued by those signs, and I know that I think before I saw them, I don't know if I would have been like. I guess I'm curious to see what they would do. The district that I represent in Caribou, we have obviously a ferry, and that's my little area I clean up every year. I go down and take a garbage bag off 250 feet, gone through the hedges. But I think that would be a great place for a sign. And I think, is there something that is provincial highway? Has there been any interest from the provincial government for those signs?
Currently, there hasn't been a lot. Currently, the provincial government, the only ones that you'll see through Public Works are the ones that are still those old school soup cans with the fines and the don't litter. But certainly, because it was in the mandate letter from the Premier, and there is such a significant interest on preventing litter, not just cleaning it up, that it will be interesting to see if there is more direction from the provincial government on the signage side and to be a little bit more proactive, one similar to what Divert has designed. So it should be interesting in the coming months to see where things could potentially go.
Yes, absolutely. I think that there's many entries into our municipality where I think those would be really great, just to kind of show that, you know, we're taking this seriously and, you know, things. I just had a question about the landfill. You notice that there's a lot of garbage surrounding that in the springtime. And personally, I think it's due to a lot of people not covering the backs of their trucks when they're hauling. Is there anything that can be done at the landfill for that? Is that something that when the entry that they, you know, the garbage is covered, do they, I guess it's not their kind of can of worms to open and to critique. But I think there needs to be a little education on that, because there seems to be a majority of trucks that I see, they're not covered in the back, and that's.
So it is interesting, so the RCMP can lay fines for unsecured loads as well, but obviously, like as we talked about the resource and the staffing issue, we do put education out about it. It does get to some people, but it's amazing how many vehicles that park up by the gate and tuck it in just before they get to the scales to make it look like it was on there the whole drive. So it is a significant issue, and we do have some really great local residents in that area. The Rivers family who live on the Trent Connector and pick up an enormous amount of it every year just because of close proximity. So definitely something that we can keep, you know, repetition on the messaging for that. You know, unfortunately, we can't do a lot on the fine side, but education for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe a radio spot or something like that.
Absolutely.
And one more question, if I would, Deputy Warden. You talked about we'll go back to those litter offenses, and I'm very lucky in the community that represent. We have a great turnout every year for Go Clean Get Green. We have very active volunteers, especially now with our shorelines. You know, they're already planning once with fall. I just, going back to those offenses, I just, unfortunately, you know, as has been said, it just feels like unfortunately, waste of time. In order, like we said, but in order to catch them and to have the evidence and to have everything like you mentioned. So while I think the provincial government's, you know, heart, for lack of a better word, is in the right spot for the litter bug enforcement, you know, unfortunately, I feel it's That's come back to education, because unless you're going to have litter bug enforcers out there, march in the streets, I don't feel it's a very, money well spent for the taxpayers in Nova Scotia, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate your comments.
Councilor Thompson?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering if you could share that 106 page.
Absolutely. No, I'll send Brian the link if he can distribute it.
Bedtime reading for me.
Yeah. And the behavior one is 45 pages if you want that too.
Please do.
Send it
Yes.
all, I will do that.
Yeah, send it all. Couple of comments. If you drive from the exit 25 going east towards Antigonish, the Dexter and Older Lines is looking after the maintenance of that highway now. They're also building twin in the highway, but they're looking after the maintenance. And I think we have the nicest stretch of highway in Nova Scotia. Like they mow it. There's, whether they're picking litter up every week or not, but there's no litter on that highway.
I did notice that on the way to Cape Breton was over too.
It's, and in my own district, we picked a couple of key areas in the community that would keep the ditches in. And you talk about the sign that says our litter, what's the phrase on that sign? Stands out in
On the road litter states that, you know.
It doesn't help. Because our roads, our ditches are after June or July, after the weeds grow up, you can't find them. The litters sky high in some of those places. Would adopting the highway, and we used to, as a province, have road crews doing a lot of that clearing of the ditches on a more regular basis. Getting rid of the high grass and weeds and stuff. With that, is there any signs or with litter bugs, litter in an area that looks nice?
I can't say for sure the signs. There has been some proof that once litter is in an area, it attracts litter. People are more apt if they've already seen it done, whether it's a little bit easier on the conscience to toss it, somebody else already did it. So you do have a point there for sure. Yeah.
And there, I actually had to phone in a discarded mattress that they weren't very ambitious. They only went just past the S turns in Plymouth and on the glass of the town pumping station there. They didn't even go to the backwoods and dump it off. They just chucked it there. I had to phone that one in, but there must have been some students they came out with it out this summer. But I'm curious. It might be worth a conversation with the folks that are running the maintenance on that highway to see why they're doing it. I never picked the phone up and do that myself, but I just think that it's amazing when you drive on that. If anybody just pays attention when you drive east going towards Antigonish, it is the nicest thing. They trim the grass around the guardrails. It looks nice. It looks like a park, right? It's not cheap probably, but it's. I'm just curious if there's any signs around that.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Thank you, Dr. Ward. Thank you, Deborah. Just on Andy's part with the Dexter lines, I looked for the bridge government. At one time, we did have students go around picking up garbage on highways and things like that, but it got to be safety issues, so they pulled that off. That was, 18, 20-year-olds up there doing. Dexter Moment do mow the grass there, makes a beautiful job. You're paying for it as a taxpayer. It's the whole province was doing it. Moving forward, right? It's just not in the government's budget to be able to do that. But on other issues like the landfill, I find now it's a lot better now that they take a lot more things that paint, electronics. They took a load of garbage to the landfill on Saturday. And
full printers and things like that. I was surprised that it dropped there. I had to drop the stores, but it's great that it dropped there. The Gold Green Get Green initiative, it's a great thing. Our community of the Thornton area, a lot of people take part in that and show up and do their part. But what surprised me, my daughter and I cleaned up from called Cow Road to the top of the hill. It's probably 100 meters if that. 48 liquor cans found within that short distance, okay? Which is scary because that's right on, and they weren't put there for a long period of time because they're still pretty new looking, right? So, you know, and we find mattresses and we found axles and things like that. The only thing is, I know it was like the police, the paper saying that the person, no, they don't have time or anything, but you have to see that person drop that thing out of the car. They're not dropping it when there's people around. They're dropping it on the Marsh Road. That's there today. Somebody took their flyers and just threw them up the window right there. What do you do about people? You'll never educate them. They'll always obliterate their house, their properties. So, yeah, it's a big undertaking, but as a community, people got to try to keep their communities looking nice and picking up the garbage and things like that. But I suppose it's just a hard thing for me to think that you can educate somebody that has no respect for the environment. They could just litter for the sake of living. Anyway, thanks for everything. Hopefully things get better.
Thanks, Councilor Warner. Any further questions? Go ahead.
Everyone, just a comment. I know a number of years ago I was involved in EPR programs to encourage people that's going to be a reality for us, and we call it easy hands because we got it's going to be so easy to get started. So it's really good to hear that EPR is going to be close to be. So thank you for that.
It's been a lot of years, trust me.
Thank you, Councilor Warner. I think our Warden wants to jump in there. Go ahead, Robert.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties here, I missed most of Deborah's presentation, but I have seen it before, so I think I know pretty well what she's talking about. But yeah, there is a push on certainly by the province to try and do a better job at litter right across this province. I know you know, a lot of effort came from Nova Scotia. Where's the next step? I guess I'm wondering, Deborah, what's the next step to this process? We can come up with things that we can try in this county, and there's a lot being tried now for sure, and some of it helping a lot. But do you see the efforts that started this year with the research? Do you see that carrying on to whether it's further signage in the province or other efforts to try and help us, I guess, as individual counties to lower the amount of littering in our county?
Yeah, so I think where I see it going is they are focusing on these couple of items initially to see how these pilot projects go. There's also been some municipalities that have undertaken some on their own with carpool lots to try whether it's different messaging or whether it's signage. So I think we're going to see a lot of trial and error, I want to say, over maybe the next number of months to a year. And hopefully from that, if we can get some best practices on what's working in other areas, that it could be something that Diverge or the province could look to roll out, and we can look to roll out and support here, because they're certainly looking for partners, and we're not sure where the provincial government's going with the Litter Bug Act. They do talk about additional education and potential new signage based on their research there. So we have a lot of people working at a lot of different angles. So I'm certainly optimistic that within the next year, we may not have fixed the problem, but I'm really hoping we have something innovative and proactive instead of just, we've been so focused on the cleanup part of it for so many years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Any further questions? Question. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. You had mentioned two things that struck me in your presentation. One was question why? Why litter? And there's going to be some behavioral research into that. Is there any preliminary information on reasoning why people litter?
There is, I couldn't speak completely to the technical terms on the behavioral science side of things. I know to combat them, they are talking about like trying to use social norms, that sort of thing. You know, we know the majority of people are doing the littering, but how do we bring that small percentage around to social norm with those who aren't? And for sure in the report, there's probably a lot more detail on the behavioral side that I'll share the link with Brian, if you want to reach into it a little bit further, because it is interesting stuff. It's pretty deep and pretty heavy stuff, so it's not a light read, but it is very interesting.
Because the reason is because you say there are particular jurisdictions that have litter under control. I mean, there's places you can go that there's no litter. PEI, I was just in PEI last week, and PEI made a huge difference. There's a huge difference in the litter problem there and the problem here. And you know, culturally and historically and educationally, we're right in line with it. They made a difference in the way that they do litter. And so there are jurisdictions that do it right. And the question that I come back to is why? So why don't they do it in PEI? Why do we do it here? So there's that whole behavioral aspect to it. You had mentioned on the slide there that there was a study going forward by some Halifax company, but you never really detail.
The Davis Peer Consulting, so that's the link that I'll send to Brian and he'll share on their literature review and kind of their, based on what they've researched, why they think that people might be doing it. And the PEI one's interesting because I'm the same, like, you know, I spent summers there as a kid and travel there often to visit family. But when I speak to staff, you know, on the waste management side over there, and we're kind of like, what are you guys doing? Because we do notice the difference. And they're like, we don't know. Like, they have, you know, they have an adopted highway program like most other provinces, but there's nothing specific. So it's very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that comparison is really striking.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turner. Any further question? I do have, I took it to the floor quite a few times, whether or not the votes, what can you do? Do you have any suggestions or start defaults to try to get that problem solved and work towards it? I guess that's what we were waiting for your report. So meeting the council can start it.
I wish I could say I knew what to tell you and what to do. Like, I mean, I've been in the solid waste business for over 20 years now, and if you had told me when I got into it to now that I'd still be sitting here talking about litter, I would say, oh, no way, we would have figured it out, it would have been fixed, but here we are. So I'm really hopeful of the support that finally Divert and the province is really delving into, that they're going to be able to give us some resources and some things that we can take back to our communities that will make that difference. But obviously your guys' continued support of the Go Clean initiatives and individuals supporting on a daily basis is kind of where we're at now, but hopefully we'll make some impact in the next year or so, maybe a more proactive, innovative way.
I see in Cape Breton that they use signage, new signage up now on Cabot Trail, and it's some kind of stuff. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, resolution District 6, intersection light, Councilman Keel.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Resolution. Whereas the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou has adopted a policy with respect to the provision of street lighting at intersections and areas where residential street lighting does not exist. Whereas this policy is intended to aid in the safe passage of motor vehicles and public streets or roads and pedestrian traffic at street intersections and other pedestrian infrastructure in a manner which is both affordable and adequate for vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Whereas the Property Service Committee has considered a request for the installation of an intersection street light in District 6 at the intersection of Highway 376 and the Durham Road. Whereas the Director of Public Works and Development has carried out an analysis of the area, including the condition of roads, speed limits, and the lack of flashing beacons or signalized traffic control. Therefore, be it resolved by the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou, the Council approved the installation of one intersection street light in accordance with policy number 20080934 in District 6 at the intersection of Highway 376 and the Durham Road. Dated Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 6th day of September 2022, signed by myself and seconded by Councillor Randy Palmer.
Thank you. Any questions on the resolution? Go ahead, Councilor Carter.
I had a comment that I made. I've been criticized in the past by a certain older relative of mine that I used up all of the intersection lots of District 6. Don't think it's fair that I'm criticized for doing the job.
Let's say about that. Any further comments? Everyone in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. 8, receipts for donation to Regional Football, Councilor Elliott.
Resolution whereas the municipality of the county of Pictou is registered with the Canada Revenue Agency as a qualified donee, whereas the Income Tax Act permits qualified donees to issue official donation receipts for income tax purposes, whereas the River John Pickleball Club has requested that the municipality receive donated funds for the club's capital campaign and issue charitable tax receipts to respective donors, whereas the Financial Services Committee supports this request and recommends that municipalities' charitable tax number be used for that purpose. Therefore, be it resolved by the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou that Council authorize the collection of charitable donations to the River John Pickleball Club's capital campaign and the issuance of charitable tax receipts for the same dated in Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 6th day of September 2022, moved by myself, Councillor Elliott, and second by Councillor David Parker.
So seconded.
Thank you, Elliott. Any questions? Resolution? Hearing none, everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Reminded. Resolution Capital Investment Plan 2022-23, Councilor Keel.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Resolution. Be it resolved by the Municipal Council for the Municipality of the County of Pictou, the Council adopt 2022, 2023, 2026, 2027 capital investment plan in the amount of $61,235,304. The same having been reviewed and adopted and approved by the Financial Services Committee of Council. Dated in Pictou, Nova Scotia, the 6th day of September 2022, signed by myself, Councillor Darrell McKeel, and seconded by Councillor Chester Dewar.
Thank you, Councilor Keel. Just wondered if there should be a correction here. 26, 27.
Yeah, the resolution is for the full 5 years.
Yeah.
So the agenda just said 22, 23, but the resolution says 26, 27.
Right. Okay. Any questions on the resolution? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we're not thinking of this whole capital plan issue, like the last few weeks, because our discussion really difficult because we had a financing anyone else and that. And when I looked, this came from 2019 and it's something that we just mostly voted on at that meeting. We didn't really seem to have a clear understanding of what was going on. In some cases, the sidewalk on Western Road. And I just sort of get a clear idea why that's on there, where it came from. I know it's back in 2019. But I really do believe that we have to get back to our planning sessions for our capital budget and all fairness to our staff who need our capital investment plan to put their information out in a timely fashion. And I don't think we're doing that. So I would really like to see council go back to it. I know COVID upset a lot of things we were doing, but I really do think it's time to go back to our planning sessions for our investment plan and purchase the council, because I know there's issues I'm looking, and I'm not sure if things progress. Brian can help me with that. Should we be including things through our accessibility committee? What's going to happen with that through our climate change, through our planning changes? Should we be looking at all that stuff to go into our capital investment plan? And I don't see any of that identified in this. So I do have real concerns with that. So I guess I'm certainly support it because I know it has to be passed. So Karen can remember. But I would like to see us as a council become more involved. Because I think that's kind of the nuts and bolts of this thing.
That's on our January meeting that we have in January. That you'd like to see it. Talk about it.
That or we had planning sessions earlier. To get the capital plan started, but do something to get started on our plan for our capital investment and have it ready to pass with our budget. I think that's important. Two of them should go hand in hand.
Sure. So yes, so the work of those subcommittees, there will be recommendations that will come forward that will need to be incorporated into a capital plan because there's going to be financial implications. So, so that work is starting, and there's some recommendations. Climate change made a recommendation at one of its last meetings around energy efficiency in this building, and looking at that, and there's a cost to doing that. And so those type items need to be funneled into a planning and identified. And on the accessibility side, there's a number of recommendations that will probably come out of that, but just day-to-day stuff as well, like on sidewalks, existing infrastructure, things. I know the director of public works has identified sidewalks that need repairs and things. So they didn't fit this year just because of a timing issue. If we don't get them repaired, but in future years there will be ongoing maintenance of existing infrastructure, so all of that will be rolled into a master plan. And then council, there's a number of projects that have been set as priorities. Council has to decide are they a priority or not to be included in the 5-year plan.
So we're pretty reasonable to think that we should be under the planning meeting to work on this capital budget. Sometime in May, all this sort of thing, but
Early January is January, that type of time frame is good for us because we typically, ideally, we'd like to get to a point that we used to approve them, all budgets kind of on one night. So that's kind of where we'd like to get back to. So we are looking like a January timeframe would be fine to match it up. So.
okay, thank you.
Last staff then to note that. See. Okay, any further questions? I had Councilor Thompson.
Just on Councilor Watt's point with some of the stuff that's not like struggling for me. That past the design stage and the of sidewalk in Plymouth and Western Road project, there's not a nickel in this capital plan for sidewalks. Not a nickel. And that sends an awful message to people. When we have policies on the books for active transportation, age-friendly communities, we have climate change for that matter. And these, that particular issue is struggling for me. And I think we're not, I think we need to get back on track with our planning and these Councilor comments.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, everyone in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye. Find it. Here, thank you. Item 7, internet project. Brian.
So I did circulate just a brief update here on the internet project. So on the fiber side of the project, so from this building out to Pleasant Heights subdivision and out to Hardwood Hill, except for a few laterals that we're just waiting on some minor Nova Scotia Power work. That fiber is fully commissioned. We do have test customers active on that. And the plans are still on track to have general availability by September the 15th. As we've mentioned before, as the area becomes active, letters will go out to each of the serviceable address, inviting them to get hooked up and explaining the process for connection. The ISPs will market their individual packages to those serviceable homes. So they will be doing that. Their marketing will tie back to the, ultimately does tie back to the portal for sign up. And on that portal, it actually, you will be able to select your ISP from that portal, and it will have all the various packages that are being offered. Pleasant Heights to Central West River, construction and splicing is complete. The data track and access equipment is being installed next week at the Central West River, and the fiber will then be terminated and testing will be completed. The expectation is that the fiber will be commissioned for use by September 21st. And again, once this equipment is commissioned, letters can go into the serviceable addresses. Central West River to Mount Tom. The build from Central West River to Mount Tom is underway. They've put about 2,500 meters of strand from Mount Tom east, and they are continuing to run strand in. And then they would go back, once the strand is complete, they go back and run the splicing or the fiber and then do the splicing. And that way it is expected that the fiber will be ready for service by the end of October. Last month, we did mention we were meeting with Nova Scotia Power. We did meet with them on August 3rd to discuss the make-ready process. And as you recall, last month we showed the statistics on the process and the length of time. So as a result of that meeting, Nova Scotia Power has assigned 4 power line technicians to the northern area. So here in Pictou County and in Colchester County, and they have a dedicated detailer has been assigned to our project. So that person actually goes out, examines the poles, and says what needs to be done to the poles. So that from the technical team believes that will help expedite the process greatly. Now that there's some resources actually kind of working on project. On the wireless side, the Hardwood Hill Tower, which will service about 250 residents, that tower is live, and we're in the process of adding some test customers to that, so we can actually fully test the wireless side. The fiber side, the operating systems and have been tested or in the process of being tested, so we need to do the same on the wireless side. So that Hardwood Hill Tower is live, and we expect the testing to be completed by mid-September. Green Hill Tower is live. The RF coverage survey is underway, and fine-tuning the radio equipment in conjunction with Hardwood Hills. The Hardwood Hill and the Green Hill Tower see each other, so The RF tweaking has to be coordinated because we don't want the two towers actually interfering with each other. In the field. The Green Hill Tower, the backhaul is fiber. So we are waiting on the make ready for that to be completed. And it is expected that that make ready will be done in the month of October. So then once the fiber is there, then we can move that tower to full general operations. The tower here, the microwave and fixed wireless are being installed. Fiber is in place here, building to the tower. So this tower will feed the McClellan's Mountain Tower as well as the Mountain Tom Tower. So the microwave dishes here will feed those two towers. And RF analysis and radio equipment should be done by mid-September. At Tom, their microwave and the fixed wireless equipment is installed. And the backhaul is from here. So once the information is, or once this tower is fully commissioned, then that will become live. And it is expected that all of that work will be done by the end of next week. And then just the radio fine tuning by weeks.
You select no, you're automatically screwed down, just select yes.
McClellan's Mountain, the microwave backhaul again is from here. The steel required for the install has been shipped to Turris, who is the company who is going to do the install there. They are working on that this week, and that tower is expected to be done by Friday of this week. And then again, all the radio equipment tweaking of the equipment to be completed by the end of September. Eureka Tower is built. There's no clear ETA on the tower to be installed at that location. All the various easements and things have all been filed, and registry has provided the registry, land registry has provided all the information, and that's been submitted to Nova Scotia Power. So that is in the works, the work order, but we are depending on from Nova Scotia Power. They are looking at potential alternatives for power in that site. So the backhaul for the Eureka site is from McClellan's Mountain. So going live is dependent on the McClellan's Mountain location, but McClellan's Mountain should be operational in the next week from there. And yeah, so the fixed wireless and microwave install targeting mid-October to align with the power resolution, but the backhaul is to be completed in advance of that. River John drawings were approved, engineering drawings, and sent to K-Line to commence constructions. Materials are an issue. Lead times for steel are 6 to 12 weeks. So this steel has been ordered. So the exact construction date be determined from there. Same with power right there. There needs to be a power line constructed into that site. But they are targeting fixed wireless and microwave to be done in October as well. River John backhaul as well. We are looking to construct a second tower on Hardwood Hills. And we're working through placement of driveways, so it's a smaller tower than the bell tower, which will allow us to put the microwave dish on that. And the reason for this kind of mini tower is just to try and avoid some of the costs of co-location. Putting the microwave dish on the third party's tower is not cheap. And it has a real impact on the operating costs. So Willowdale, Meiklefield, and Sunbury, the leases are complete. And first, we'll be contracting to do the installs on that. So the steel and stuff has been ordered. They expect that as they move through the sequence, they're probably putting those towers up in starting in October. And then as each tower is completed, there will be basically a staging that comes on with each tower. We are looking at another co-location opportunity with the town of Pictou and using their water tower. So we are the team is basically doing kind of the backhaul design from here to that water tower type thing. For that one, the town of Pictou water tower site would provide coverage to Pictou Island and some of the shore areas. And Eden Lake, East River, Bailey's Brook, and Poplar Hill are all at the land acquisition stages. Eden Lake, the lease is signed, Bailey's Brook, the lease is signed, and Poplar Hill will be signed this week. And still looking at a site in Blue Mountain. There is an old CBC site that's a potential. They had looked at it originally, and there's no interest from the owner, but that has been since revisited, and CBC are now interested in potentially even divesting themselves off that location to us. So that's still ongoing. So on the communication side, letters are sent to all serviceable property once testing from the system is complete. So for the Lions Brook area, we expect on the fiber side, they will go in the very near future, a sweep on that. And the communications that goes out explains the process to each resident, follow for services. So it explains how they can book the install of the fiber to the home, as well as directs them to the portal, which has the information for ISPs. And in addition, as I mentioned earlier, the ISPs will do their own independent marketing of their own packages, which will correspond back to the sign-up portal. And we are planning an official launch event for late September. And that will be a public event. Details and what logistics are still being worked upon. As far as location, things of that nature, so paper.
So, thank you, Brian. Any questions for the County Council?
Mr. Chair, I had a conversation with you last week about this Friday, I think with Megan. There's a little bit of upset down in the Eden Lake Garden of Eden area around the whole Starlink program and how some people are eligible and some aren't. I'd like to whoever's to review it. There's 180 civics, and only out of that 180 civics, only 18 civics are eligible. And like, they all talk to each other down there. So they say, And it's on the website, anybody can access this information, so they can't understand why they can get, but the neighbor next to them can get a rebate or eligible for a rebate. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I just like somebody to take another look at it, to see if something funky's going on there, because 10% eligibility in an area that probably won't receive fiber for another 2 years at the earliest. It's not great when there's a service out there that they can tap into and get the speeds they're looking for now.
Yeah, we do have the data for that. So our GIS department putting that together for us. We got that data last week. But saying that, the way the Develop Nova Scotia program worked, it's whether or not there's an alternative service that will be delivered within the next 15 months. And if that service is to be delivered, and our wireless service will be, then, and if our wireless service meets those speeds, then Develop Nova Scotia will not overbuild the Starlink. So that's their rules. It's not our program. So we can look at it from a technical standpoint, and we can confirm that those 118 properties are serviceable with this speed within the next 15 months. And if that's the case, the provincial program has their rules set. And we're not going to change their rules at the end of the day, but it can be as specific as house one, we can hit with a 50-10 service, and the next house, just based on might be in a little dip, we can't get them that full speed, so that one would become eligible. It is that sensitive, right? So, but we'll look at it. We've got the data. We can look at it, and at the end of the day, it'll be a Develop Nova Scotia call, but again,
Comments I'm receiving from people in Lake or the Eden area is, I don't understand it. Literally, the property next to me can get it, and I can't. We're on the same, we're on the same right by the lake, the same elevation. It doesn't make sense. So I can't solve or answer that problem. See, somebody else can.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to clarify a couple of things from Brian's report there. So our tower next to our building in there, is it or is it not hooked up yet to be operational? Because we've been waiting for 2 months for this one to be, somebody to climb it and make it operational. Are we there yet?
they've got part of it is done. They've got the radio antennas on it. I don't know if the dishes are on the ground. I think they ran out of daylight today to put the dishes up, but the radio equipment is on. They were there all day today, so the dishes will go on tomorrow. So, and they were there a couple days last week, so the dishes are tomorrow. That will feed Mount Tom and McCollum's Mountain.
Okay, and if those are on tomorrow or whatever day, is that tower ready to be operational then, or does it then have to undergo testing and a bunch of other stuff?
Yeah, so they need to align. The dishes need to be aligned, so the dish that will go towards Mount Tom will be aligned with Mount Tom. The one with McClellan's Mountain will be aligned with McClellan's Mountain, hopefully this week, because Tourist is supposed to be there doing that this week. So that will make the backhauls operational. The equipment that's on there, the antennas and stuff, it basically, within 2 weeks, they will have it completely operational. Like they'll do the RF testing to make sure that the Coverage is, basically now they'll do an accuracy, like everything's been based on models. So now they'll go out and they'll actually do an RF analysis to make sure that the coverage is can confirm the actual coverages. So that takes a week to 10 days to do that. So it is basically operational once that's complete, and then they'll, like we're testing the letters when I'm looking for last week some test customers for the wireless, but it was based off the Hartwood Hill Tower. But so they want to test the interface between the customer and the network operations center here. So it's a gradual thing. They don't necessarily need to test every tower that way. They probably do need to have fairly good level of comfort that the system's going to work. So when somebody signs up, it's really about the process of signing up, having somebody go do the install for a wireless type thing. So that's what we're testing and stuff that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I might ask one more question, I wonder, it sounds like we're getting close to having people hooking up here out as far as Pleasant Heights, and then the following Thursday, that's next Thursday, and the following Thursday out farther to West River Fire Department. Do we have the staff that we need hired to look after this process? I know we've been talking about hiring people for a long time, but you know, we're getting to the crunch point here, it seems to me, where we're going to have at least one, if not two people, you know, responsible for getting this system up and going and keeping it going. Are we getting there?
Yes, we're looking at doing the hiring next week. And on the wireless side, that's taken care of from start to basically finish, because we NCS is contracted to do the home installs as well. They are contracted to be the network operations center managers. So they're on the wireless side, we're good. And on the fiber side, we're good. We've got we have a third party that will do 24-hour surveillance ready to come on board for us. So we are in good shape on that side.
So we do expect to hire somebody next week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Council Lawton?
Mr. Chair, Brian, do you know which tower possibly, maybe have to do more checking on which tower would be Little Harbor going?
Closest one, I assume, would be the following mountain. Assuming that's the closest one.
I know they've lots of trouble with the radios or some.
Yeah, so depending on line of sight, all the towers are equipped with multiple types of equipment. So there's LTE, which is basically line of sight. So if you can't see the tower, you're not going to get, in essence, a good the service. But then all the towers also have TV white space on them, which will go through trees and go through over hills and things like that. So all the towers have the basically both.
So people will come out.
it could be, and it could be a combination of multiple towers.
We can check that, right?
Yeah, we can verify
Yeah,
which one
look
it
at his
is.
questions.
Councilor Carter. Taking it everyone. Just a few questions here. Town location, Brian, is that? Where was that? Just gives me a few comments.
It's provincial tower.
Provincial tower is, where's it located?
That would be my answer, except I did ask that question today because there's an insurance question, so give me 2 seconds because they did reply to me. Because we need to do a certificate of insurance because this is a TIS tower. I'll get back to you on that. He just sent me the longitude and latitude, so I'm not sure that would help. But it is a TIR
If you could just,
tower.
No.
Okay, yeah.
The other thing is, when is the whole county's fiber supposed to be completed?
So the current target would be 2025. Is what it's based on.
December 2025.
Yeah, however, with the changes like with Nova Scotia Power, the crews and the detailed planner, the hope is that that will shrink considerable amount because it had been taking them close to a year just to get a planner to go up and look at it. So now with a dedicated
How
person.
many kilometers of fiber can they run it?
They
Are they
can,
going to ramp up their crews?
yeah, they can do, based on the current crews and one of the things, is to answer that is, telecom have the ability to ramp up crews and add additional crews. But right now, if they did that, they'd be basically working to an end. They'd have the crew here for like 2 or 3 weeks and that's it. So if we get the make ready process flowing, they can do it. So the estimate, I think they told me is they can do between 400 to 500 kilometers of construction season.
Okay. So we're doing, we're going to do 1,200 kilometers or 1,500 kilometers.
Yeah, about 1,200.
Okay.
Right, so that's why it's kind of pushed out to 25 then, because at the rate they're going.
And who hires the architect?
Nova Scotia Tower.
Right. So
So,
there's a lot of, like I just been looking around, knowing where things going, there's a lot of rush there to take place.
we got a make ready, specific make ready came in, week and a half ago. The road is 80 kilometers. And I think there's 5.6 kilometers off it required.
So there's a lot of roads around like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of the process.
Okay. So board management, everybody has to hire an employee, this is what we have to make place. And just one other question. Right now, we're still working on our time.
So we're in kind of a wind down mode with them, as I mentioned at the committee meeting. So we're kind of in that wind down phase, and we're really at a point even with digital ubiquity and as we kind of moving down like this first phase with all the issues that we had around contractor and stuff, like they did a lot more doing than just oversight. And we pretty much have developed the system now that would even just move them to kind of that project management and oversight as opposed to actually having to get the work done, right? type thing, so, so even on that side, we're kind of transitioning.
So they be the project managers for anything we can forward.
Yeah.
No, that's great, thank you.
We have any further questions? Councilor Perkins?
Or a comment. There seems to be a lot happening, not more than I've heard other ones. And I think we need to get some of that pictures, comment onto our website. But I'm hearing from residents that, oh, that's been updated once. Needs to be updated every week, something new put on there, new picture. People they're frustrated. You know, we oversold these, whatever we said. Timelines, it's taken longer than we had hoped. Doing all kinds of things. At the end of the day, they want the internet service. I gotta sit on my deck, be able to use my phone. It's how poor my phone service is. Same phone. But in Westfield works fine. Halifax works wonderful. Just click, 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 right fast. Even outside of the deck. Oh. Inside, doesn't pick up the call. And that's why we need these secure services. Just living in the Stone Age. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barker. I think we all can agree with that, but it takes time to get everything in line. I think everything is in line now. The next month or so, we're going to see. Councilor Butler.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have one question regarding the Vegas Brook Tower. It seems to me that in the last report, we mentioned that some work was going to begin in August. This report doesn't tell us, it tells us that the lease has been signed, but what's phase or what step are we at now?
So Bailey's Brook, lease is signed. It is a provincial site, it's owned by the province of Nova Scotia, so we signed the lease and stuff. It does require cabinet approval. So everything's been done on our side, all the engineering drawings, site drawings, it's done. It's just waiting for that final sign off from the province, and then we're basically ready to start, so we have that final approval.
Starting would be.
Physically constructing it. We've got all the, we have all of that stuff, like it's been, Bailey's Brook is a lattice tower, I believe. So the towers were all bought. So it's just really shift the site once we have the approval to kind of go on to the site. So we're just waiting on that final approval. That approval was supposed to come in July. Because everything was done. I'm gonna say it was done in May, and then basically the government said it takes about 2 months to get it through cabinet. The minister's signature on it, so that was that's where the July date came from, and then August start, so. So it's with the provincial department at this one.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thanks. Move on to number 8, this is county hillside property over US. You're on the very short.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a resident in Hillside, Jack and we call Jack, Johnny and Jacqueline Fanny. They're seniors, they've been there, Jackie forever, and Jack was just an area, but that's a long, long time ago. They had a problem with the backup into their basement, and so they called in Louis Marcotte plumber, And Louis looked at the problem. And, he said he just didn't have the equipment to deal with it. They better get a hold of another plumber. And see, they had to, he doesn't have the right equipment and everything. So they went to TNB on Friday before dinner. They said someone would, TNB said someone would be there before long. At 4:20, the lady at TNB called and Mrs. Fanning and told her that the guys will be there shortly, but you realize it's now will cost you more as it will be after hours. So they can do with another church. And as Mrs. Fanny said, what was she to do? No water or nothing in this problem. So she let them come Friday at the afternoon and being on the Friday and everything. At 5:10, they landed. They had to leave and get a bigger snake. First they said, they started saying it was this and it was, that and different things is what they, but then they came into the club and they found out, they called in Danny Tupper. Danny Tupper came in and gets dug it up and the public works had to replace the pipe. And I guess according to Danny Tupper that it was put in wrong years ago when it was first put on there. It wasn't, there was some gravel and that put around it and it wasn't put in right. And so they had that fixed and the broken line and everything. And as she says, there's not enough general update and looking after that. I mean, we've been ground about this long before, and it's been involved, or Logan's been involved with me in this, and it's just terrible. So we're charging these people, big money for their storing their water, and as she says, you can't see their fault. They didn't lay the pipes, and Hillside has a lot of bad pipes. Nothing gets upgraded. I'm sure, that again, that we pay them, we charge them all this money and everything. They come back and they hit them with an $885.50 bill, and they had to pay cash. They would pay credit card and everything else on a Friday night at 10 o'clock. They were there 5 hours, they were there from 5:10 to 10 o'clock with doing this and finally have to get the line fixed. So it was the line that was causing the problem. I really believe, as a council, I can't see us, making seniors pay a bill like this for no fault of their own. It'd be different if it was in their line, if they did something, then do a job that they should be doing. But these people did nothing but what they were told to do and ended up with a big bill like this. So I'm asking council if we can approve this and pay this $885.50 to these people because they're seniors. They're not rich people. They have a nice property. They keep the property nice and hillside, and they're very community minded and they do a lot of things to help people out. And I don't think any of us would fall for $885.50. Especially if they hit you on Friday night at 10 o'clock, told you to cash. So again, I really do think, just to sum it up, I guess, is that how many times here have I talked about the water in Hillside? How many times we've said that there's pipes we've already got there done? Logan and them has done some checking in Hillside because we get backups happening everywhere. There's big problems there. There's got to be something done. There's got to be some new infrastructure work done up there and everything, but why should the residents be held responsible for something like this. So I mean, if you want to come up with a policy, says, yeah, they gotta call the county first, well, good, so be it. But in this case, these people didn't know what to do. Friday night, they did what we all do. Get a plumber in, see what the heck is going on, see what we can find out what is going on. And they did, and to me, it's just, it's cruel and it's unjust to make these people pay $885.50 for something that ended up being our problem.
Thank you, Councilor Woods. Just I'll ask Logan to speak on that. But just for clarification, was this problem between in the lateral going to the house and on the other side in our, like, yes, well,
Well, it would have been in yours because it was the pipe, that's what was replaced. They could Danny Tucker to replace the pipe that was in ours counties.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Boyles, and through you, Mr. Chair, to the entire council. I have a hard time with this, and I certainly see your point, Councilor Boyles. The residents certainly are very nice and understanding people. I've had correspondence with them as well. I have a hard time with this particular issue because, for a number of reasons, it's an exceptionally high bill. The work that was done by T&B Plumbing, who completed the work, charged these fees per your conversations with me, other council was the charge them after hours rates. The issue was found to be on the municipality portion of the service lateral for this residence. According to contractor on site, there's a sag in our line, which contributed to blockage. Municipality ended up paying for portion of the municipality's line be replaced without that sag. However, the work, so the overall work that was completed included the staking of this line, then the replacement of that portion of the line. The municipality paid for the portion of the line that was replaced. However, had no control over the work that was completed for the staking of the line. As mentioned, it's an exceptionally high bill. We do this work regularly. We have several contractors that we work with that we do this for far less. And the work that was completed for the staking of the line was completed on the municipality's portion, which is the municipality's infrastructure. So I think part of the question here, and something for council to consider, and I don't have the answer for it, is whether or not we're going to allow private companies and private residents, not the residents in particular here, to do work on municipality infrastructure. We would not be authorized to do work on the private owner's portion of this infrastructure. So in reality, they would have to incur these costs likely themselves anyway to determine whether or not there's any blockage on their portion of the line. So work was completed on our portion of the line, completed by a contractor who I think by all accounts should have known better than to complete work on our portion of the line. Without our prior knowledge, we have a 24-hour after hours call number. Staff is very diligent in coming out to address these certain concerns. I understand that it may not be, perhaps a public education campaign of some sort via social media could be appropriate here to notify folks to call the municipality in this sort of case. My struggle here is that the work was completed on the municipality's portion of the line. We had no prior knowledge of it. It's an exceptionally high bill for the work that was completed. I think it could have been completed for far less. And the question is whether or not I guess the public should be paying for this portion of the work. Large, I guess, depending on council's decision, or this should probably look at some sort of public education campaign. I hope that helps clarify the situation at this particular residence. I understand Councilor Boyle's point with this, and the residents certainly seem excellent. I think some of the blame lies with the contractors, and they should have known otherwise. And, that we should be able to rely on our own information, our own staff, to make these decisions. So I guess I would put that to council as to whether or not this is a learning opportunity for us, that we that the municipality pays for a portion of this, or if sure take a harder stance that work should be completed on our side of our infrastructure without problem. So any questions that anybody has, happy to answer or give further information on. And yeah, thanks, Councillor Wells, for bringing this, because I think it is an important item to bring to the table for discussion. Get some planning as well.
Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around here. But what went on? So TND was involved and Tucker Stratton was involved. Tucker Stratton was doing the excavation and placement of the line. Portion of which was our responsibility. Did we pay for that?
Yes, we paid for a portion. So the way these laterals work, of course, is that a portion is on the municipality side, a portion is on the private side, and upon completion and the connection to that service, the municipality retains ownership of the portion on the private side, or on the public side of the right of way, and the owner takes a portion of the private side. So Tuckers was involved in the excavation and the reinstallation of the portion of pipe that had the sag, and T&D plumbing had been called in. My understanding is prior to the installation work to snake the line. They snaked a portion of, I believe, the private line and then a portion of our line as well, but without a private knowledge. So that, I guess, is the question. It's,
if I may, we paid Mr. Tucker portion of the bill. The 885 that Mr. Boyle's talked about was only from TND.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Clear understanding. The nature, the reason for the backup, however, was because it was saying in our portion of.
That's what that was what was indicated to us. I never saw a copy of the CCTV video. However, our public works staff with my side did reflect that and indicate that there was an issue with our portions allowed. So it was replaced. It was now by all accounts functioning properly.
Just a question, was your department notified before Tucker started the day?
No, our department was notified after Tucker started being prior to the excavation work on the public side. The portion that Tuckers did replace was fair enough to be, and they did receive prior from us prior to the repair installation.
So did Tucker call our department, or?
I don't know who received the initial call. Received your call though.
Any further question? Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Well, the unfortunate was on hand. The unfortunate for him hasn't seen it. He authorized Tucker to turn around and clean it. It was clearly our problem. It's our pipe that was broken. It wasn't their pipe. Because also she said they replaced our pipe, not theirs. So I'm not an engineer, but I mean, if you turn around and stake the line, you come to a blockage. Well, that's your problem. So it was our problem right from the start. They wouldn't have had to stake that line. They wouldn't have to do nothing on that line if it wasn't for our pipe collapsing. And this is not right that you turn around and now they turn around and say that, okay, it's, they shouldn't be going in on this. Well, if TND shouldn't have went in, and I don't even know if they did win on that. They came to a blockage. That blockage might have been right there at the end, and bingo, that was where your guys' is, and they never went in. I don't know. But if they did, then that's between the municipality and TND, and they should be told that you're not to win there and you're not to do this. When we talked Logan, you mentioned that, it's maybe it's time that the county got a snake. And that we turn around, then we have 24-hour call, even if you guys have there on a call, you got no snake, nothing anyway. So you have to call someone to do it. And this TND and one of them, that's like who you're gonna have to call after hours, you're gonna get the exact same bill. Because it's after hours, and that's what they're saying, and they're there 5 hours. They called me that night, asked me some stuff too. I said, I don't know, I said, now, I as a counselor didn't know nothing about turn around and have to call the municipality. Now they could tell me that. I took a bunch of the cards down here, this is the ones you got. I've been passing them all around to everybody in this side that's onto our system and saying to them, okay, if you've got a problem, call the council first, and or the number first, and they will turn around and come and go from there. But people don't know that. I didn't know it. I don't know anybody that really would have known it without this happening. And I think it's very unfair that they're used now as sort of, too bad it's so sad. I think that it's only right, and I mean, if you get any harm at all, it's only right that you pay seniors, the $885 that we turn around and, I mean, it's again, to repeat myself, the money we're charging them for the water and the storage and stuff like that. And now to hit them with something like this that wasn't their fault because of the blocking. The pluggage wasn't there. There would have been no need for this. So I really am asking you to turn around and to pay this bill. We want to make something and make, maybe get sued to turn around and put it on the line that what has to be done now and get a stake. So our guys land there, they have a stake and do the proper things. That's great. Don't turn around and make a couple of seniors turn around and eat $885.50. I know I wouldn't want to, not when he is here, would want for your mothers or fathers or whoever it would be. You wouldn't want them stuck with a bill like this. They're just wanting their water fixed. That's all they wanted to get it back. So I really ask you to turn around. Hey, we want to make new policy that, get it out there good. Let's do it. Let's get these stickers around everybody that's got that are storing water. At the same time, I really think that we should be reimbursing these people for the money. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments?
Well, can you just confirm for me, was the problem our problem, or was there work to be done on which side? Just, I'm not really clear on that.
The physical problem itself was on our side of it. And that's what the repair was.
And if that didn't happen on our side, they would have been to ship it.
That's correct.
Anybody else have any comment?
Yeah, if it was our problem on our side, that caused blockage, then I think that we should be paying for it. Because it wasn't any fault of theirs, but if the blockage had been on their side, not on our side, then I would say no. Since it's on our side and caused the problem, I think we should be.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I agree. I think we should pay this bill for these people as well. But I will say going forward, I think that if we're going to be having 24-hour it's not the right word, but I guess so, to call for people, and we're going to be experiencing these type of problems, and I think we need to get a snake, and we need to be able to evaluate this on our own and be able to, because we're able to do the work on our own, or we're the one making the calls, let's just say, after hours. So we should be able to have some sort of tools to be able to go in and see what the problem is. And I think we should also have some policy on this as well going forward. So I agree, let's pay the bill, but going forward, we need to have some particulars around this.
Thank you. It is probably just they didn't contact us about Councilor Byrne.
I want to relay the situation that property that I had an interest in. I wasn't there, or I was there part. Anyway, there was a sewer backup. And leach leaking in the basement. I think it was Friday, it was definitely after hours. And we called the municipality, this is before all this time. And they were there within 20 minutes. Took the man and looked in the manhole and said, yeah, that's the problem. A few minutes later, they had I called the sucker truck there. cleaned everything out, and they even went into the basement. Now this is private property, and they didn't know it was partially owned by a councillor. They went into the basement, and it was that sucker, cleaning up most of the mess. It's nothing pleasant about it. You know, the service was excellent, could not have been better. And in that case, we did have a plumber come and look at it. He advised us to call the county. But, you know, just a matter of having the right plumber to be. But yeah, I agree with Randy. So on our side of the line, wouldn't it happen if that say hadn't been there? We should reimburse you. I don't agree with TNB and how they bill, but that's personal.
Lord Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to agree with the last two councillors that spoke that, you know, this appears to be a case of it was on our side of the line type of thing. I think some mistakes were made, but I don't believe in saddling that on the seniors. I think we need to do a better job of letting people know, you know, who to call and that type of thing when these things happen. We do have a 24-hour service, and that's what should be used. But in this case, it appears that some things went awry, and that teaches us, I guess, to do a better job of letting our residents know what to do. And in the meantime, not to saddle these seniors with that cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before Peter speaks again? I just say something. Second, just a quick thing, and it's about the snake, about where it's getting snake. Can you access the laterals out of the right way? Like, or, because I'm looking at mine, there's no way if you access them bilateral. So in order to, if you can do this, then you don't have to go on private property, which I don't think that we should as a municipality. Right, and I think Team B's snaked the whole line and said, okay, the problem's down here, you get the copper split, and then copper snake the whole line. But until you stake the line, you don't know if it's your problem or municipality's problem. And I think even if we do get a stake, we're going to have to go on private property. If we go on private property, you'll be going to everybody's that got a problem. So I don't think that's our job, right? Because a lot of lines do break. And it is property owner's responsibility. So.
Yeah, we don't have access immediately to most laterals, so there are some that we have cleanouts and access points located near the property line, which would be easier to check with a snake. However, our public works team would not likely be able to access them. Possibly with the assistance of contractors, possibly without the assistance of contractors. So just reviewing that, having a snake would be helpful for us departmentally in operation in a number of different ways. But I would echo, I guess, comments around us not going on to private properties to do this type of investigation work. I think that opens up a series of liabilities and allowances and different things like that. So I think, it might be something that we do as Councilor McKeely mentioned, we develop some policy around for review of sort of blockages and things like that. Put some sort of work procedure in place. It's excellent food for thought. But a snake would help us operationally in different capacities, and I guess that's it would serve a good purpose for us departmentally as well, beyond just this type of situation.
Councilor, thanks, Deputy Warden. I'm going to make, we pay this bill and learn from our mistakes and get the word out. Second.
President, second, any questions? Motion is paid.
885.
Any further questions on the motion?
Submitted to the office.
You're right, yeah.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Right.
Item 9. Culture up, getting to agents and district.
Yeah, I did tell Gordon Parker that I would be willing to sit on that.
Yeah.
If he's a representative, want to take it to council in case it's something that's specific. Maybe it's just for set and get arts for things that they're saying, they don't.
Yeah, so Councillor Wyden sits on the overall committee for the cultural hub, I guess fair hub, we'll call it. But you're there as the part of that. And like somebody that I guess they're like the way you word it more municipal rep. So Councillor Wyden's appointment is actually to the library, not here. The warden is our rep on that committee as a council rep, so it's kind of just a new task for Councillor Wyden that we're not endorsed. She's not endorsed by this council to do. Does that make sense?
Not really, but.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll make a motion that Councillor Wyden be appointed to that committee to represent the municipality.
No, okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Rick, move second. Any questions on that? Okay, say aye.
Aye.
Recommended. Sorry, I didn't understand.
I just wanted to.
Item 10, community announcements. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. Here, we got a note here, this Saturday in Churchville, at the Churchville Hall's third annual Rural Fall Market. From 9 a.m. to noon, a good cross section of local vendors. Councillor Dewar can attest, there's quite a good crowd there, so. The other one is there's Engage Nova Scotia. It's holding a meeting on September 14th at the Community College in Stoughton from 6 to 8 p.m. And they're just going to review some of their quality of life and other initiatives, and it could be a good place for councillors to be in. To hear what's going on in the process.
Thank you. Councilor Boyles.
Oh, so yes, I have two. On Saturday, September 10th, certainly coming up, there'll be a trivia at the front of the Hillside Hall at 7:30. Also, on Friday, September 16th, we're going to start a country jam where entertainers can come in and perform at the hall, and it would. Any entertainers that are performing does not pay nothing to come in or anything. The general public that wants to come in and listen to it, it'll be costing $5. And there'll be a light lunch business. Their cheese, jams and that, the tea and coffee will be provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Turner.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. The Abercrombie Volunteer Fire Department this Saturday, 11 to 2 o'clock, are having a fun day, family fun day. So there's hot dogs, game for the kids, all kinds of stuff happening. In the area, drop by and have a hot dog and a pop.
Good. Councilor Dave Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, Labor Day. And never in my lifetime have I seen our labor force change as fast as it changed right now. And most of probably employees, but there's a couple of groups out there that sort of special recognition we call the heroes early on in the pandemic. And things have only gotten tougher. Not with the people that work healthcare facilities. They know they do not see light at the end of the tunnel. They're overworked and overstressed, and a lot of them have quit, quite frankly. That's going to be the worst for the ones that have stayed. So I'm asking that we send a letter to the QP local They represent most of the people who work in long-term care and residential facilities. And also we send one particularly to the Nova Scotia Nurses Union. Just thank you for their efforts over the last year. They can hang in there. We are in crisis. There's no two ways around it. We're in a crisis in our overall labor force, but we're particularly in crisis in our healthcare. Causes there that I don't really understand, but we should be thanking them, bolstering them, and encouraging them to continue. They're quite heroic efforts, to be honest. If you know a nurse or an RN or an LPN or even someone working as a lab tech or whatever, for God's sakes, thank them. They are doing heroic work. Okay, that's the first thing I have. That'll have to be emotional.
Just on that, does everybody agree with this? Great, great.
My second is something I was involved in last month, and I'm suggesting this is something that this prior reconciliation understanding with the Native communities, something called a blanket ceremony. It's something that takes 2 to 3 hours to do, and it really shouldn't just be us. It happened in the daytime. It really, many of our staff, but also, but what it did for me was help me to understand many of the points they're making. It's I agree with them, but I have a much greater understanding now of why they believe and push the things they do. It's called a blanket ceremony. It's put on, it actually involves blankets on the floor to start with. It's put on, the lady put it on for us, and I believe her name was Candace Bernard from Escasona. But anyway, it was eye-opener for me. I think I grew up as you did, Deputy Warden Murray, in a very white community. We really didn't have any data for Asian or Black people in our community. So we got a very, very narrow view of the world. And like I said, this was an eye-opener. This is something that have to schedule months ahead. And like I said, it really should be done during the daytime, and many of our staff should participate as well as many councils that are concerned. It would really benefit us. I can get you the contact information for this for Eric. Thank you.
We'll ask staff and of course. Okay. Warden Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's that time of year again. People are used to me bringing this up now. The Terry Fox Marathon of Hope will be taking place on September the 18th. I'm slow out of the gate this year because of being sick, but I'm still hoping to take part. We all know too many people in our communities and our families that have been lost to cancer over this past year. And it's just a terrible disease for anybody to get hit with, and luckily some people make it out the other end, but too many of us don't, or too many people in our communities don't. And I met with a widow this afternoon over in the Bible Hill area, gentleman that did work for me for years on electric motors and whatnot, and you know, they lost him last Christmas, so he's no longer with us, and that's just one of many, many. The only answer to this is research, of course, and so I know some of you get tired of me looking for money all the time, but if anybody would like to sponsor me in that Terry Fox run on the 18th, just send me an email. I would have liked to have been there tonight, but it wasn't possible. So if you want to send me an email, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Waddle.
Thank you. Tomorrow night, just a reminder that the NSM vote is tomorrow night for the changes to our bylaws, accommodate our structural changes, and it's imperative we register to take part in that SO meeting, and we encourage all of you to attend if you can. Will be a vote, and really want to see this move forward. We need your support of that. So if you register for if you haven't already, do so by tomorrow and attend the meeting tomorrow night from 6 to 7 or 6 to 9. So right to 7. Thank you.
Councilor Butler.
Yes, the Lismore Community Center is hosting a murder mystery evening. If anyone would like to come, you may not get murdered, but you may have an enjoyable evening. And if you're interested in tickets, I don't think it's Dalton Center.
clean this up. Anyway, just want to say 2 Saturdays ago, not this past Saturday, Saturday before last, Thor celebrated the 150th anniversary with the opening of our new kiosk. It's very successful. A lot of people turned out. We had Councillor Thompson showed up, former councillors Claire McKinnon and Mike Butler were there, and they said a few words. Gordon popped out, he said he had COVID or something like that, so he could make it. Anyway, it was very enjoyable. Thorn Fire Department put on a fun day similar to what their projects had, and for the kids and things like that. And then on Sunday, we had a church service to celebrate the Thorn 150, and it was very successful too, so. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to the council for supporting this project. It's very, very well received in the community and had a lot of positive comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGill?
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden. Just a reminder to everyone that the exhibition's on Victor this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it, and I know there's a lot of 4-Hers that are excited about having the presentations and also celebrating 100 years of 4-H in Nova Scotia this Sunday as well. I'm sure many of you received invitations to that. I'm also looking forward to attending that. So if you have an opportunity, I think the whole week pass was $25. If you can find one, I don't know if they're sold out or not yet, but anyways, I'm looking forward to a wonderful weekend of the exhibition. Thank you.
It's another one that Warden sort of jogged my memory about. There's a Terry Fox walk in Bridgeville on 18th as well. There's an article of 80 Green. It's organized for that. It's been really nice to see everybody back at the event after COVID. So forward to that. Yeah, I want to really skip some committee, and the first shift is supposed to be in on the 8th, coming into Peckham, so just everybody know.
Just a reminder that the public consultations for the boundary review started tonight with our online session, which we had the grand total of 0. Actually, so we're hoping that the meetings that are in the public will be better attended than that. So Tony River is on the 8th, Hillside is on the 12th, Plymouth is on the 20th, Durham is on the 21st, American Mission is on the 22nd. So those are the public upcoming. So
Just Councillor Boyles, you know the time that shift comes in?
I'm not sure. They just said that it'll be coming in September 8th, so I think it'll be coming in during the night too, because I think they said something about it'd like to be dark when they can see the idea. Just I noticed in the papers this weekend, an ad for Nova Scotia Utility Review Board notice public hearing. Town of Trenton, on behalf of the water utility, has applied for approval of amendments to its scheduled rates and charges for water and water services. Basically, they're looking at water rate increases. You may request a form standing as an intervener, subject to board approval. This will allow you to present evidence or cross-examine witnesses. Your request must be received by the board up by September 19th. Copy of your written evidence by Wednesday, November 2nd. In the rates are basically right now the current annual fire protection charge, and I think that is split between the town of Trenton and Pictou County, our municipality. The current rate is $136,000. It's proposed to increase to $286,000, which is a 110% increase in 2023-24, and it increases again 2024-25 to $332,507, and in 25-26 it increases again to $372,930, so, just wondering are we gonna intervene in this? And, because I know every time water rates for, different water utilities, whether it's kind of Stoughton, Glasgow, or Clinton, they come to us all the time looking for us to pay for their water through this fire flow. So I'm just wondering is there any plans on intervening in this, or are we going to try to say no, we're not really interested in increasing our hydrant fees or fire flow? What we're going to do is this, we don't have a lot of time now.
Yeah, so we did see that ad as well, so we will look to file intervener status on that. We actually haven't seen the rate study as of yet. That's one of the first steps that we're actually supposed to receive documentation, so in order for us to put on the fence, we actually have to have the study, so we'll be looking at that as well, because I think that's supposed to happen for the end. It's been.
So, fair enough. And just be an update at a future financial services.
We could actually put it on in the file for next 2 weeks from now. So
okay, cool.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you very much. No, I don't have a whole lot to update on here tonight. Other than the junior firefighting program has been implemented and is running like a school year at this point. So I see students coming in through grades 10 through 12, be able to apply to their schools. Become junior firefighters and get course credit towards graduation. So that's the only update I have for tonight. I should have more in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Item 11, emergency resolutions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not an emergency resolution. I just had a couple of comments. One is that sitting in a different chair here tonight, I've just found it very, very difficult to follow the conversation. Most of the counselors, the voices are very broken up when you're trying to hear. I can hear Brian at the front of the room pretty good, but a lot of the other ones, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But anybody trying to listen in, if they're getting the type of reception I am, would have a very hard job following the meeting. So I think we need to look into, if it's more than just my reception here, we need to look into how people could listen to our meetings and get more out of them. And the second thing, Mr. Chair, to Evan, I did hear on the radio today, I believe it's in Halifax, that there's a lot of concerns right now about the equipment that a lot of our firefighters have, that there may be some pretty carcinogenic materials in them, and they're now going to store them in separate vehicles. They're going to, in the Halifax area, they're going to take some immediate steps until they can find out, what they have to do about this equipment. Has that been looked at all in our county here through to Evan, through you, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I also read that article today, and that's an issue in the fire service in general when it comes to carcinogens. And in Pickard County, we have quite a few stations that have in-house washing machines where they keep on their own equipment. I've also been working with a company called Clean Heroes. I haven't finalized anything yet, but this company travels around from municipality to municipality, and they'll clean gear yearly for full decontamination. And so that makes a huge difference. The concept that Halifax was discussing is more of what you refer to as a clean cab mindset, and that's more of a career thing because as they get in the truck, typically they be geared up and ready. And what they're switching to is waiting until they arrive on the scene and removing their gear from a compartment of the truck and donning it on scene, which is typically what our volunteers are doing now in our county. So as far as the clean cap concept goes, that's more of a paid station thing. But I can say it is a big issue, and there's a lot of stations that are working towards a fix for that actively.
Thank you.
Okay, emergency resolutions. Okay, none. Thank you very much for coming home. Sorry, David.
It was a little hard on my much older brother earlier. So I wanted to point out what's in the background there behind it, an excellent choice in, I think, 4.
That's your opinion.